Welcome to Sizzle Fantasy Sports, the channel with the most sizzling hot fantasy takes and analysis, presented by your host, Gavin.
Rodgers, clean pocket, throws the middle of the end zone. Devontae, touchdown, and a dagger!
How are we doing, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Weekly Lineup Advice here from the SFS channel. In today's video, or at least in this episode, we've got 3 videos coming out today. I'll be talking 5 must-start wide receivers for Week 8 action here. This is a little bit of a lighter week in terms of teams we're going to be missing with bye weeks here. We've got the Raiders and the Ravens out of actions, but everyone else is back in the fold here as we were missing quite a few teams last week, so our lineups were wearing a little bit thin. In terms of our picks last week, we had a pretty successful going. We were 4 out of 5 in our picks, and the one standout that wasn't exactly as productive as expected was AJ Green for the Arizona Cardinals. He did actually lead the team, or had the tie for the team lead in receiving yards with 66 yards, and that was Zach Ertz was tying him as well. But he didn't find the end zone. It was D-Hop, Christian Kirk, other players, James Conner finding the end zone and scoring. AJ wasn't able to get in there. It was decent floor value, but he didn't quite crack 10 points in half PPR scoring, which tends to be the marker we like to look to for those wide receiver picks. Obviously, we want to see them boom higher above that marker, and some of our other picks did last week, but AJ was the one let down. Outside of that, it was a pretty successful week, though. So, thank you so much for tuning into today's video. Let's jump straight in to our first must-start wideout here in Week 8. Alrighty, jumping straight into our picks here as we've got the intro at the very top of today's episode, so not having to jump into that for this time around. One more thing, SFS has a green screen on the way, so hopefully by either tomorrow's episodes or Thursday's videos, we'll have that up and running and have a little bit of a different background for you guys to experience. But Adam Thielen is my first must-start wide receiver this week. I've had my reservations. I've had my questions about Adam Thielen, especially throughout the draft process, throughout his production so far this year and dating back to last year. He's been a very touchdown-dependent play. But at the end of the day, this guy just seems to have a knack for finding the end zone, and it's something that he has really mastered into a skill, and that his red zone awareness is such that he is able to separate and have a chemistry with Kirk Cousins inside the 20-yard line that very few wide receivers have with their quarterback. And while he might not still be the top pass-catching threat for this Vikings offense, he is still a very feasible lineup play on a week-to-week basis. And I think this week, his ceiling is particularly good, and there's a very strong chance, in my opinion, that he might be able to find the end zone here in Week 8 against a Dallas defense that, yes, has Trayvon Diggs, has a defense that's playing really good football, taking it away from other teams, getting turnovers, sacks, pressures, all that good stuff. They've been a very disruptive defensive unit. But the one thing that they have surrendered is big plays over the top. Trayvon Diggs is a ball hawk. He's on wild pace right now in terms of the interceptions he's already accumulated through this point in the season. Maybe that bye week will cool him off a little bit. That's yet to be seen. But Trayvon does surrender big plays. He gets a little bit too excited sometimes. He jumps, misses plays, and lets up big scores. We saw that happen last week with, Week 6. His last time out there on the field as Dallas was on a bye last week. Here we expect that Trayvon will be covering Justin Jefferson for probably the majority of this contest if he chooses to travel, which is the case that I expect to be played out here. But nonetheless, that means at worst, Adam Thielen's going to be getting number 2 coverage for the majority of this contest, which is clearly very advantageous for a player as savvy and as skilled as Adam Thielen is. This presents a very favorable matchup for the Minnesota Vikings offense. I think Thielen delivers this week. I think he will hopefully crack a score or 2. We've seen him do it throughout the season. He's already got, in just his 6 games played, 5 total touchdown receptions. In 4 of his 6 starts, he has a touchdown this year. So again, he has 1 multi-TD game already this season. He does have 2 games under 10 points. Those were both outings when he did not score a touchdown. But again, I like the matchup this week. So I think in terms of whether or not he scores, there's a more favorable chance that he does so here in a matchup that I think he has both the opportunity to produce in the yardage department and to get one, whether he slips through the coverage, simply beats someone in the red zone, wherever the case may be. I'm very confident that Adam Thielen will find a way to produce quality fantasy numbers against the Dallas defense this week. Marvin Jones, Jacksonville taking on the Seattle Seahawks. He and his teammate Laviska Shenault are 2 players and 2 starts that I'm willing to make preferably in a lower end wide receiver 2 or flex role for your lineups, but I think these are both players who deserve lineup consideration and should be in a lot of teams' lineups, especially for Laviska in PPR leagues. Both players, the last time we saw them in London against the Miami Dolphins, 10 targets each. That's a great marker to be at. That's probably a little bit higher than what we're going to see both of them be able to do in the same contest again this season. And I think 10 targets is a little bit high in retrospect to Marvin Jones' typical target share here. But nonetheless, the fact that this Jags offense is passing the ball so much and that these two are the primary beneficiaries in a good matchup against the Seahawks secondary that has been able to be beaten deep throughout this season, I think there's a good chance here. And you talk about the fact that this Jaguars defense is young and as energetic as they might be, they're very susceptible to letting up big plays. If the Seahawks are able to score enough points to keep the game script pushing towards, these teams being neck and neck, because without Russell Wilson, I'm not really sure how big the gap is between a Geno Smith and between a Trevor Lawrence-led football team, albeit the talent of the overall Seahawks roster might be better than that of the Jags. We'll see how this contest plays out. I expect that Lawrence will be throwing a high volume of passes. I think that James Robinson's going to have a very productive game on the ground. That should set up the play-action passing game to be very, very effective for particularly Marvin Jones on those deeper patterns that he seems to thrive on and has throughout his career. Laviska Shenault being the more intermediate and short yardage passing player should see a lot of volume come his way. If he can haul in enough of those catches, maybe even find the end zone here, I think we've got ourselves a good opportunity for, again, both of these players to be wide receiver 2 or flex level lineup plays in week 8. I'll take DJ Moore. I know that this one seems like it should be a given, but there's a lot of panic that I've seen in the comment section of my videos throughout this week. I've been asked a lot of questions on the community Discord. Is it time to panic on DJ Moore? Am I worried about him? Should I be looking to trade him? Should I sit him down this week? Some teams do have very deep wide receiver cores. But for the majority of scenarios, the situation is going to be no. Do not sit DJ Moore. This is a player I'm very confident in. The floor is very, very safe. We've seen him have 7 or more targets in every single game this season. That's not a marker that a lot of wide receivers outside of a Calvin Ridley, who's another player I'm extremely patient with and not panicking on. Very few players have reached markers higher than that level. Moore has struggled through tough quarterback matchups, or not matchups, rather tough quarterback play, and the production out of Sam Darnold since those first 3 games hasn't quite been up to par with what it was to start off this season. But I'm confident with how many opportunities he's seeing, with how many looks he's getting on a week-to-week basis, DJ should be able to come out here against the Falcons in a decent matchup, go out here, get back on track. The floor numbers this past week weren't terrible. They were getting you by in your leagues. Obviously, we have higher expectations for him now that he had those breakout numbers the first 3/4 of the month of September. Now DJ's kind of settled in here. His ceiling and his productivity has settled down and kind of found a happy medium, but I think that, or rather it is bottomed out. I think that it will trend back to a happy medium and we'll get back to a place where we feel comfortable with DJ Moore as either a fringe wide receiver 1 or high upside wide receiver 2 on a week-to-week basis. Chase Claypool, Pittsburgh taking on the Cleveland Browns here. This is a matchup I really like because that Cleveland secondary has really struggled this season and things have not clicked in for this defense. We've seen bigger-bodied, tall, red zone threat wide receivers like a Mike Williams for the Chargers have huge games against this Cleveland secondary. Chase Claypool being a taller, faster, really athletic player in comparison to some other wide receivers, I think presents a mismatch based off of the personnel the Browns can provide on the back end of things. It's going to come down here and be determined, his overall fantasy success, whether or not he's kind of been going to the locker room and getting nicked up in games, leaving for half a quarter at times, and then coming back really mysteriously like he did against the Seahawks. It's been really weird, the injuries that these Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers seem to be in and out with. He'll get nicked up, banged up, leave the game, go back to the locker room, come back out half a quarter later. It's very interesting to watch. But what this game's going to come down to is, A, can he stay on the field for 4 quarters? And B, will Ben Roethlisberger give him enough opportunities downfield to make plays? That's really what's going to make or break this game for Chase Claypool. I could very easily see him having a massive 80 to 100 yard game with a touchdown scored over the top of the defense, Or I could see him coming out here and laying an egg if Big Ben just continues to dink and dunk passes to Deontay Johnson at the line of scrimmage and Najee Harris out of the backfield. So there's two ways that this matchup can go. I am in a position where I think the upside outweighs the risk. I think that the chances of him booming outweigh the chances of him having a bust performance. So for me, the points could be really, really impressive, really, really safe for, not safe, but really, really advantageous and potentially week winning if he's able to capitalize on this opportunity. Pittsburgh's coming off a bye. They should have game planned for this, be prepared for the opportunity in front of them for a skilled player like Chase Claypool to have this advantage this week. I think they'll come out here and attack the weakness of the Browns, which is that secondary defensively. And then Michael Pittman taking on the Tennessee Titans. Don't be fooled by what you saw from the Kansas City offense last week against Tennessee. The Titans banged up secondary, their banged up defense, their bottom of the league rushing and pass defense did not just flip a switch and become a shutdown unit overnight. Holding the Chiefs to 3 points was more of an indictment on what the Kansas City Chiefs were doing offensively than it was a marker of the excellence of the Tennessee Titans defensive unit. They were getting pressure. I am not denying that. They were taking the ball away, punching the football out of the Chiefs' arms. But Kansas City was playing sloppy offense. Pat Mahomes was making poor choices, bad ball security, throwing terrible interceptions. He has 17 turnovers on the season through week 7. That's over 2 per game. Unheard of and uncharted territory for Patrick Mahomes to this point in his career in terms of sloppiness with the football and making errors that have given up the football to the other team. This Titans defense may be taking steps in the right direction, but they're not going to come out here and be holding teams to field goals the rest of this season. The Colts are a gritty and grindy offensive team that has the capability of making plays, and they've got playmakers that enable Carson Wentz in this offense to make chunk plays downfield. Michael Pittman's one of those guys. He will be able to exploit the secondary matchups provided to him this week. He's a big-bodied, speedy wide receiver. He can get open downfield, separate. We even saw this week on Sunday Night Football, he wasn't really open. Carson Wentz just put the ball up, and this kid high-pointed it. Boom, scores a touchdown, waltzes into the end zone. You've got yourself his weekly productivity. Michael Pittman's a very talented wide receiver. His targets aren't quite to the marker that he was seeing at the beginning of the year. 2 of his first 3 games, he had 12 targets in 2 separate performances, so that was very impressive. That number's scaled back a little bit here as the Colts have really found a resurgence in their run game and found out how to be more of a balanced football team. But going forward here, Michael Pittman's someone I feel very comfortable with. And in this in-division matchup, I think that they're going to first establish the run with Jonathan Taylor and get that phase of the offense moving. And as we get into the later stages of this football game, they're going to have the opportunity to set up the play-action pass. Wentz will take a couple shots deep downfield to Michael Pittman. And if you can cash in on one of those, you've got yourself some really nice upside this week. And a strong, again, wide receiver 2 would be a little bit more risky territory to have him in here, but if you're looking for a really strong flex play, Michael Pittman can certainly be that for your teams this week. Alrighty, those were my 5 must-start wide receivers for Week 8 NFL action. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to give it a like and click that subscribe button before you head out of today's episode. Also, if you've got questions for me regarding your individual leagues, you can drop those down in the comment section below, but in order to get guaranteed responses from me, go check out SFS Gold, which is our exclusive membership service here on the SFS channel. If you'd like to potentially gain access to a free month of SFS Gold, you can do that by supporting one of our partners here on the SFS channel, Thrive Fantasy, which if you are able to go sign up, create a new account on their website, and deposit 10 or more bucks all the way up to 100 using code SIZZLE, they will match you 100% of whatever you put into their site to play with on their daily fantasy prop bets that they give to you for individual matchups with football, basketball. They've got other sports out there as well. Again, when you go sign up on Thrive and deposit using code SIZZLE, they'll match you all the way up to 100 bucks, and within a 24-hour period, they will let me know that you have created an account and played using my promo code, and in turn, I'll turn around and grant you a free month-long membership to SFS Gold to thank you for helping them out and in turn helping out the SFS channel. So, thank you all so much for watching. Go check out Thrive Fantasy. The link to their website is in the description of today's video. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.